As we are long away now from the release of Iuno, it's quite likely a ton of players are interested in picking her up due to a few reasons. But above all might be that since she is the best in slot sub DPS for Augusta and would allow her to be utilized at max potential. Although there are some alternative options that do still allow Augusta to perform exceptionally well, which may provide enough value to perhaps even consider skipping Iuno. So with that being said, I'll be going over Iuno's kid standouts, the synergy she holds with Augusta and her performance in comparison to some of the alternatives, whether the signature weapon is a must pull alongside the versatility it holds, then I'll be wrapping it up with her overall value and whether or not Iuno is a character you should pull for your account. As always, if you are interested in more WutheringWaves content, would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Kicking this off with the fact that it's pretty clear Iuno was intended to be tailor-made for Augusta, considering not only does she provide a massive heavy attack damage amplification of 50% via the outro skill, but specifically will provide a damage amplification that only Augusta as of now can maximize. Upon Iuno activating the full moon domain, resonators will receive the blessing of one light, which provides a 4% damage amplification that can stack up to 10 times. However, resonators will only receive additional stacks through gaining multiple shields, which as of now only Iuno and Augusta can generate enough to obtain the max damage amplification of 40%. So of course, with the fact a 40% damage amplification can allow any DPS to deal significantly more damage, it is then a bit harsh on any other character that is paired alongside Iuno since they are missing out on a considerable damage increase, which pretty much is the reason why Iuno is labeled as the best in slot sub DPS for Augusta. Although even with that said, Iuno can still provide great value in addition to the massive heavy attack damage amplification, specifically the fact that she does heal allies through the full moon domain alongside the lunar cycle moonbow attacks. In addition, it does seem like Iuno will be capable of dealing a lot of damage for a sub DPS and enough to possibly be utilized as a main DPS, meaning when paired alongside another damage dealer will lead to quite a lot of DPS being dealt overall. Lastly, with the fact her moonbow attacks generate additional concerto energy and are dealt to enemies whilst Iuno is at range, it means Iuno's rotation should be on the faster side and will be quite easy to complete, allowing you to switch back to your main DPS extremely quick. So all in all, it's clear to see Iuno does hold great value overall, and especially when considering the detail of her animations alongside her fun playstyle. But it's also clear to see that she is only fully utilized when alongside Augusta, which can gain the maximum damage amplification from Iuno's full moon domain. Now, despite just how amazing Iuno is going to perform alongside Augusta, it's fair to mention there will be a few other sub DPS options you could use consisting of Mortifi, Yinlin and Phrolova. Phrolova in specific is capable of dealing great damage off field and amplifying heavy attack damage by 25%, whereas Yinlin is capable of dealing not as great damage but still a decent amount alongside amplifying electro damage by 20%. However, both of these options wouldn't be the greatest alongside Augusta, considering Phrolova's off-field attacks are completely stopped whenever Augusta activates her liberation, which obviously leads to a big drop in DPS since Phrolova deals most of her damage whilst off-field. Then with Yinlin, it simply comes down to the fact that she is a bit more clunky in comparison to other options and just doesn't provide as much of a damage amplification. So ultimately, Mortifi would be and is currently the best sub DPS to utilize in place of Iuno, considering he provides a massive 38% heavy attack damage amplification via the outro skill, a 20% attack bonus when casting the liberation with his final sequence node, extremely quick rotations and decent DPS whilst off-field. Now between Mortifi and Iuno's buffs, there isn't much of a difference since she does only provide another 12% heavy attack damage amplification, and even though she does provide another 40% overall damage amplification, Mortifi does provide a 20% attack bonus through his final sequence node, which a lot of players may already have. It goes without saying that Iuno will enable Augusta to deal more damage, but whether she provides enough to warrant pulling over a free 4-star character that already provides massive damage amplification is definitely worth considering. Truthfully, the real value lies with the fact Iuno just deals a ton more damage, which is going to ultimately allow all content to be much easier to clear through since you can rely on both Augusta and Iuno's damage. So ultimately, it does boil down to Iuno providing slightly more damage amplification and dealing a lot more damage over Mortaphy, which to some might be enough to pull Iuno, but to others it may not be enough, and especially if your Augusta is facing no issues in clearing all content. Though with the kit aside, it's objectively clear that Iuno has a much nicer design with incredible detail, which isn't something that will enhance Augusta's performance but may be a great reason to still consider her if you do have Augusta. Moving on to the signature weapons value, and as you may expect, it will be the best in-slot option for Iuno since it is tailor-made. Alongside the passive providing a standard 12% attack bonus, when casting an intro skill or resonance liberation, Iuno will receive a liberation damage of 20%. But also, when obtaining a shield, liberation damage will ignore 7.2% of the target's defense and can stack up to 5 times, which brings the total defense shred through liberation damage to a massive 36%, just like Augusta's signature weapon. So with that, alongside the main stats of 36% crit rate, which is the highest crit rate bonus across all of the 5-star gauntlets, it is pretty clear the weapon will provide massive value for Iuno and will specifically allow her to deal fantastic damage for a sub DPS. However, with that said, Iuno will be the only character just like Augusta that can use her signature weapon at max potential, considering there is no other character that can generate enough shields to obtain the full defense shred through liberation damage. Additionally, there really is only one other gauntlet character that specializes in dealing liberation damage, being Changli, which generates absolutely zero shields to make use out of the passive, whereas Jiyan that can generate 3 shields when activating the Forte attack doesn't really deal much liberation damage. So if anyone, then Jiyan would be the character you could use the Moongazer sigil on, but due to her low damage multipliers and not really specializing in dealing liberation damage, she wouldn't have the greatest expectations. With that, it pretty much means Iuno's signature weapon isn't going to have the best flexibility, which really isn't a shock considering the passive is similar to Augusta's and we do already know how restrictive that weapon is. Of course, if you are only concerned about how good the weapon will be for the character it's made for, it is certainly a strong option for Iuno to utilize as it will allow her to deal much more damage than when using any other weapon. Although, again similar to Augusta's weapon, there will be a few alternatives with a certain option that should allow Iuno to perform quite close to the signature. The Verity's handle provides a crit rate bonus of 24.3%, and as for the passive, a 12% attribute damage bonus is provided, and when activating a resonance liberation, a massive 48% liberation damage bonus is obtained. Obviously, the passive won't be the easiest for characters to maximize due to the restriction of having to activate 3 resonance skills in order to extend the liberation damage bonus. But in Iuno's case, she would be able to since she can activate multiple resonance skills across both her lunar cycle states. So especially with the fact Changli was a free character, which means it's likely a lot of players did pick up his weapon, the Verity's handle like the Verdant Summit for Augusta should provide enough value to be utilized as a powerful alternative option. Alongside that, there would be a few other weapons such as the Blazing Justice, Tragic Comedy, and both of the Battle Pass weapons that can provide solid value, but they wouldn't provide anywhere near the amount of value both the Signature and Verity's handle provides. So above all, if you do have the Verity's handle, then you don't need to pull the Signature weapon. If you don't, then you can use some of the other alternatives, but they wouldn't allow Iuno to perform as great, which isn't that big of a deal since she isn't the main source of damage in her compositions. But of course, if you do want to maximize the damage she deals, then the Moongazer sigil will be the weapon to allow exactly that. Overall, Iuno is going to hold incredible value for Augusta, considering the amount of damage amplification she provides alongside healing and solid DPS. On the other hand, with other heavy attack damage dealers such as Jiyan, Zani, and Phoebe, it's clear that Iuno wouldn't provide as much value, and especially in terms of damage amplification, since you would be better off with Mortaphy's 38% heavy attack damage amplification and 20% attack bonus. However, once again and with the fact Iuno potentially deals a lot of damage for a sub DPS, it may ultimately outweigh the lack of damage amplification for the main damage dealer, which essentially means she would still be considered as the best in slot sub DPS for more characters than Augusta if we are considering the whole package the character offers. Of course, the same will apply for Augusta, but like with every other main DPS, if they are dealing more than enough damage currently without Iuno, then she wouldn't exactly be a must and would simply provide extra comfort. Alongside, of course, a much more fun playstyle, incredible animations, and a design with serious attention to detail, which might be reasons to still consider Iuno if you do have the astrites to afford picking her up. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more WutheringWaves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also, drop a comment down below on whether you will be picking up Iuno alone or with her weapon, or will you be skipping. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.